Today we're talking about being more consistent. So if that was one of your goals this year, then listen in. Right, so today is all about why consistency feels so bloody hard. And we hear that all the time, don't we? We hear that consistency is key. And, I've used it for a measure for myself too. But the reality is, as human beings, we're not designed to be perfectly consistent. We have rhythms, we have cycles, we have hormones, we have life. And as you guys know, my life has not been straightforward in the last year. I don't even have a consistent work pattern right now with my daughter on reduced timetable. I mean, tomorrow, for instance, as well, everything changes because my husband's working away. So, all the normality of what we do all changes around. So, I can't even be consistent in my week. So, what I want to do is actually turn the question around. Rather than, how do I become more consistent? Maybe it's about what's happening in the moment when I'm not consistent. And I'm not going to give you the usual mindset answer. That isn't what's going on here. Because I actually think being consistent gets thrown around like a stick. And it's almost like it's something to beat ourselves up. It's an excuse as to why we're not achieving something. When it's happening, it's actually far more human to not be consistent. I honestly do not believe that humans are meant to be consistent. So today we're flipping the whole conversation. We're going to talk about the moments that you quietly quit. That moment where you say, I'm done, I'm giving up, I've had enough. The foot comes off the pedal. You stop posting, you avoid selling, you don't follow up, and you tell yourself that no one will notice. And sometimes you're doing it, but actually, a lot of the time, we don't consciously realize that that's what we're doing. It's actually the reason why so many of us, and I'm including this in myself, that feast famine moment, because subconsciously we take our foot off the pedal. It is subconscious and it's protective because it's your nervous system trying to keep you safe. So, and interestingly enough, the result of this can happen in both ways. Sometimes you've got money coming in, so your system feels safe and it goes, oh, right, let's relax a bit. Maybe you've sold something big and you've got enough money to cover the bills for the next few months, and you kind of go, oh, okay, cool, I can relax. Or subconsciously you do it. Your nervous system is telling you can relax. You might think you're all in, but it's something different. Or actually, it can also happen in the opposite way. The classic no one's buying, you feel deflated, and your system goes, this feels just risky, don't be seen. You're going to be judged for not selling, all of that sort of stuff. But either way, the behaviour looks the same. You step back without realising it. Or even what the message I just got in my head is, it might not be that you step back, it might be that you stay where you are and everybody else is stepping forward, or it feels like everybody else is stepping forward. And you call it, you say, I just need some space. I'm overwhelmed. I will do it tomorrow. I need to get clearer first. There's all sorts of reasons stroke excuses that we give. And I put reasons and excuses because sometimes they are reasons. Sometimes the rest is real. Sometimes that is needed. But sometimes it's retreat dressed up as something nicer. So I want to talk to you about a framework that I use that makes this so easy to spot. 3 Ds that show up when we struggle with consistency. So number one is dodge. This is where you kind of avoid the edge. You still do some of the work, but you dodge the part that actually grows your business. Making that bold ask. Classic for me is the follow-up. For some reason, I always think I'll do that in a bit, I'll do that in a bit. And that's what really gets me the connection. Number two is distract. And this one looks productive. This is great for fooling your conscious brain, because you can plan, you tweak, you rework, you admin, you learn, you do everything except for that one thing. And what happens is busy becomes that safety blanket. It's that excuse that you can't manage to do something because you're busy. Number 3 is delay. And that's when tomorrow becomes your best friend. Yeah, mañana. I'll do it when it feels clearer. I'll do it when I have more time. I'll do it when I feel more confident. I also have one that I'll do it when I have a good block of time to focus on it. And suddenly the day becomes a week. You know, and this is the important part, because they aren't character flaws. They're protective patterns. And I don't want you to beat yourself up about it. I want you to create the awareness so then you work with it. All right? So be honest, and there's no judgment here. Which D shows up for you most often? Is it dodge, is it distract, or is it delay? Let me see if anybody, I see a few of you watching now. Tell me which one shows up for you. If you're not sure, then comment not sure, and tell me what you think you do instead. You know, do you go quiet? Do you get busy? Do you get snappy? Or do you just shut down? You know, none of this, I don't want you to use this as, I'm not going to say it's wrong, you don't want to be doing it, but none of this is like, as I say, character flaw. This is a natural way. This is your nervous system reacting. It's your nervous system protecting you. What we want to do is bring your nervous system along on this journey. So think about how you disappear. You know, visibility, selling, numbers, you know, your admin, your boundaries, your follow-up. And mine is definitely follow-ups. I don't know why as well. Hi, Daisy. You know, following up, I am so much better when I'm talking one-to-one. You know, I don't do big groups. I don't do parties. I love like small intimate groups. So why is it that I feel I can talk in a group like this and talk on my personal profile, and I avoid talking to people in the DMs? And I kind of know why. There's the stories and everything like that. You know, I've done some work on this and I'm doing a lot more follow-ups, but I do find myself putting it off without realising. So have a think about how you do it. What I'm saying here is you will know me well enough to know that I am not someone that says, you've got to push through, keep going, you know, it's carry on regardless. That's not who I am. You know, I am about balance, apart from this morning when I was on the ice. It's resilience isn't about continuing on regardless, right? I'm not saying that you need to push through. Resilience is about being able to come back to yourself and know whether it's time to take away or time to show up, you know, and they can show up in 2 different ways as well. Interestingly enough, my one of my best friends, her daughter did her first GCSE exam yesterday. I know it's early. It was a proper GCSE exam. And she was poorly last week, and obviously there was anxiety about the exam. And it was that, is she poorly because there is loads of people off school? There's a bug going around the school. There's a lot of them that are off. Or is it because she's got the anxiety about the exam? And it's about understanding. You treat either of those differently. If it's about the exam, then you need to go and do the exam. You know, as much as you don't want to, it has to be done. But if it's sickness, the catching the bug, then actually resting is probably one of the, not to miss the exam, but the week before, it would be resting rather than revising. And it's about understanding what that underlying reason is. So let's do a 60-second reset together. Pop your hand on your chest and just drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw. That one's a big one for me. Right, and what I want you to do is inhale through your nose for 4. You're going to exhale for 6 through your mouth, and we're going to do that a couple of times, okay? So when you're ready, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do it again once more. 3, 4. And then exhale. And I want you just to make it slightly longer. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then while you're still there, return your breathing to normal. And I want you to say to yourself, I am safe enough to take one small step. Doesn't have to be a huge one. Just one. And what is coming to your mind right now as that step to take? Because that is your soul speaking. You've just connected to your soul, and that's what we're hearing without your nervous system. Okay, you've just said to your nervous system that you're safe enough. We want to now listen to your soul. If you want success this year, you don't need robotic consistency. I almost want you to forgive yourself with the lack of consistency. You need to be able to tell what's actually going on in you so that you take the right action, using the example of the GCSEs. Don't make the mistake that most people make in treating every wobble the same. The right move depends on the truth, and your body will tell you what that truth is. Using another example, after Friday's accident, it was, I don't know how my husband walked away from that, and that he's okay. He was spun around and ended up on, not a huge wall, but a big wall that, was broken. The car was, obviously his saving grace, but the other car was really badly beaten up. But when we got the hire car the next day, and the first thing my husband did was get in the car, and he drove to the same junction. And this wasn't about pretending that he was fine. That wasn't the energy that he was doing it. That was his system learning that I can do this again, I'm safe enough. And that's what resilience looks like. It's not about pushing, it's about re-entry. He could have sat there and said, no, I need to take a break from getting in a car. But because it was anxiety, that anxiety would have just got bigger. Whereas he was physically hurt and couldn't get in a car, then absolutely, I mean, he was physically hurt, he was shaking around, he aches. But if he had, a broken arm, he couldn't drive and all that, then absolutely it would be rest. You wouldn't expect him to get in a car. But because he needed to deal with that junction, he did that. And that wasn't about pushing through. It was about reassuring that he could do it. As he said, it was getting back on the horse. I really admire him for that. Having been in a major accident myself, I know how scary it is. The day after my accident, he was driving and I screamed because I thought we were going to have another accident, and there was no reason for it. Going back to my friend's example of her daughter being ill, was it illness? Was it anxiety? Because then it's about the decision it makes. And that's why this work really matters. Because when you listen to your body and tell what's really happening, you stop accidentally choosing the wrong response. You stop calling retreating rest, or even pushing through when you genuinely need recovery. And once you can do that, you don't need to force consistency. You lead yourself properly, and your business stops getting hijacked every time life happens. So the question I want you to ask yourself this week is this a true need for rest, or is it my nervous system trying to keep me safe? And then choose the action that actually supports you. You've heard of JFDI. For me, it's JFDS. Just fucking do something. It doesn't need to be it, because what happened with me, a classic one, whenever I did JFDI, I'd be going, well, what's it? What's it? My nervous system was so keen to keep me stuck that I then overthink what it was. So when I said something, it was something to get the momentum going. It's a bit like when you push off on a push bike. You can't just start pedaling. You've got to get yourself going with momentum, and then you start to pedal. So it's that sort of concept. So you're absolutely right. Daisy, the question I was asking, I talked about 3 Ds. It was dodge, distract, or delay. Which one do you find you tend to do when things get a little bit too much? And I don't mean too much in the negative either. I mean too much in the positive sometimes. So, you might get an influx of money, and your subconscious, your nervous system says, okay, I don't need to work now because I've got money to cover the bills. I'm safe, so I'm going to sit back. It can be that, you're not selling and you're getting frustrated because you're not selling and you want to hide because it feels unsafe. You're going to be judged as not good enough. So it can be all sorts of reasons, but those 3 Ds are what show up, and they often make us beat ourselves up about consistency when consistency isn't the important thing, right? Consistency is key, yes, but not in the way that people mean it. The real skill is to spot the pattern, regulate, and re-enter. Okay, so it's about understanding that dodge, distract, and delay. So have a think about what you tend to do. And if you want deeper support with this, I've got one deep dive available for next Tuesday if anybody would like it. It's just 697, or you can pay over 3 months, which I think is 233. And you get 2 hours one-to-one where we go through, really it gives us the time to really get everything sorted. We get everything up front, so you get all the work, so it's not waiting for weeks and weeks for one-to-one work. But you also get the 3 months support ongoing through Voxer, and you get it when you need it because it's on demand, right? There's not waiting for the next session. You just literally send me a message and I will get back to you, ideally the same day. Not always. If it's later, if it's after 3, then it might be the next day, but I do try and get back to you the same day. So that is me. Are there any questions? This is your chance to ask me questions. So tell me, what do you do? I don't think there's anybody that doesn't disappear, to be honest. You know, we need to take time off. So it's about understanding why that is. And I think, you know, because people put consistency as such a high priority, we really do beat ourselves up. But actually, we're not meant to be consistent. Human beings aren't consistent. I'm now working on the feeling safe to feel safe. Was in warrior mode for too long. I can relate to that as well. And I felt myself going back into that this week after everything that happened on Friday. You know, and the fact that it wasn't just Friday, it's the compounded side of things. And, you know, the reason we call it the straw that breaks the camel's back is because it's not a bale of hay, it is that single straw, but it's when you've got everything else that's added on top. So I can totally relate. And it is about feeling safe. And you've got the tools, the mindfulness and the meditation side of things are incredibly valuable. But sometimes we can't always do it for ourselves, can we? And we do need help. I'm working with a coach at the moment to actually help myself on these things, because I do feel like I'm weighed down with the world at the moment. So I'm working on me right now. Other times I might have got help with, you know, I've done storytelling and all sorts of courses. But right now, actually, some of my work is on my nervous system, embodiments and things like that. So, you know, that's where I'm working. And even though that's my area of expertise, I can do it for other people, but I struggle to do it for myself. And that's not surprising. I think a lot of us are like that. Okay, if you've got any questions, let me know. I will come back and check. But in the meantime, as there's no more questions, thank you for joining me, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.